$10 each. Click, call, or visit a Spectrum store today.
Even the mighty might not see it coming. It's prediabetes, and it captures 1 in 3 adults. But you can escape. Take the 1-minute prediabetes risk test to know where you stand and prevent or delay type 2 diabetes. Be your own hero on smartphones everywhere at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Spectrum News Plus. Local stories, connecting communities. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your Spectrum subscription.
I'm Sharon Tazwell. Here's your Spectrum News in 90. An investigation continues in Toronto after a Delta Airlines jet flipped on its roof while landing Monday. All 80 people on board survived, and those injured suffered relatively minor injuries. Communication between the tower and pilots were normal on approach to landing, but officials say wind gusts may have played a factor.
We do expect that the investigators on site will be reviewing the aircraft on its current configuration on the runway for the next 48 hours.
U.S. and Russian officials met in Saudi Arabia Tuesday for initial talks to end the war in Ukraine. However, Ukraine's president says his government was not invited. U.S. officials say they agreed to 4 principles with Russia in hopes of bringing peace to the region. The talks comes as the war nears the 3-year mark.
We're going to appoint a high-level team from our end to help negotiate and work through the end of the conflict in Ukraine in a way that's enduring and acceptable to all the parties engaged.
The Vatican says Pope Francis has developed pneumonia in both lungs. It is the latest health concern for the 88-year-old pontiff who has been hospitalized since last week. The Pope has canceled all public events until at least Saturday. The Vatican says he remains in good spirits. That's your Spectrum News in 90.
I'm meteorologist Nate Harrington. A lot of winter weather to talk about, either snow and ice or extreme cold temperatures. For the midsection of the country on Tuesday, that spreads to the east on Wednesday. Record cold will fill in for the midsection of the country on Wednesday. We're expecting some dangerously cold wind chills, but there is a light at the end of the very dark, cold tunnel. We'll talk all about that in your extended forecast.
Airline safety front and center again after a Delta flight flipped over on its roof while landing in Toronto. Thanks for joining us. I'm Sharon Tazwell. It is the latest incident involving a major U.S. airline, and authorities are working around the clock to determine what led to the crash. Spectrum's Ariel Wessler has more on what we know so far.
Passengers recall the chaotic moments when Delta Airlines Flight 4819 made its hard landing and flipped upside down. Survivors describe hanging like bats inside the cabin.
It happened so quickly, right? You hit, there's this like giant like pop crack, it's this like super loud bang.
Evacuees jumped several feet from the door frames onto the snow-covered ground as sprays of fire retardant rained overhead.
Everybody was just like, get out, get out, get out. We could smell like jet fuel.
All 76 passengers and 4 crew on board the regional jet survived, but at least 21 people were hurt. The Transportation Safety Board of Canada is now leading the investigation into the crash landing.
This would not be a time for us to have theory or to speculate on what caused the crash. We have a number of agencies that are here that are responsible for doing a thorough and full and complete investigation to determine all the causal factors.
While it's too early to determine a cause, Airport President Deborah Flint noted they saw unprecedented levels of snowfall from Thursday through Sunday.
In fact, it is more snow within that time window than we received in all of last winter.
Flint thanked first responders and flight attendants for preventing any loss of life.
The crew of Delta Flight 4819 heroically led passengers to safety, evacuating a jet that had overturned on the runway on landing that was was amidst smoke and fire.
The National Transportation Safety Board in the U.S. is assisting Canada with the investigation. The crash is the fourth major aviation accident in North America in recent weeks. 2 runways remain closed at Toronto Pearson while the investigation continues. Airport officials say more than 460 flights were canceled Monday, and the closures have led to additional flight delays. Ariel Wessler, Spectrum News.
And we're joined now by aviation journalist Christine Negroni. Christine, you have covered plenty of incidents in the airline industry. What do you make of this Delta crash, and how does something like this even happen?
Well, there's two opposites in this accident. One is that it is a highly unusual accident in that I know of no instances in which a commercial airliner has flipped entirely upside down, become inverted on landing. That's just extremely unusual. I'm not saying it hasn't happened, but I don't know of any, and I've been writing about aviation accidents for 25 years. That's quite unusual. What is not unusual, and I think people should take heart in, is the fact that there were survivors, that everyone survived this accident. Having an accident in which there are survivors, in fact, everyone survives, is not the outlier. That is the normal. That is in the percentages. It is an unusual accident in which everybody dies or there are fatalities. So this one, as miraculous as it seems that people walked away from the picture you're showing now, it's what airliners are designed to do, which is protect people even when things go wrong. And this one absolutely did that in this case.
Yeah, it really did. It's so fascinating. All right, Christine, this incident in Toronto is just the latest mishap in the airline industry. So do these accidents warrant concerns from customers? Is there any reason to be worried about flying right now?
Every accident warrants concern from the airline that was flying it and from the people who are going to fly on airliners. And that's why they are investigated as thoroughly and as lengthily as they are. But I would say that this particular accident is a highly unusual accident. It was survivable. Air travelers should take comfort in the fact that so many air accidents actually are survivable. The planes are designed to withstand even unusual circumstances like this, and obviously did in this case.
All right, Christine Negroni, thank you so much for your time and expertise. The U.S. and Russia agree on 4 principles aimed at ending the war in Ukraine during peace negotiations in Saudi Arabia Tuesday. But Ukraine, who was not invited to the talks, says it will not give in to Russia's, quote, ultimatums. Spectrum's Cassie Simeon is in Washington with the latest on the negotiations.
Nearly 3 years after Russia invaded Ukraine, top U.S. and Russian officials met face-to-face in Saudi Arabia Tuesday to begin exploring a path to a peace deal.
I came away today convinced that they are willing to begin to engage in a serious process to determine how quickly and through what mechanism can an end be brought to this war.
It's a monumental shift from the years-long U.S. policy of isolating Russia for its deadly invasion, and notably absent from the talks, representatives of Ukraine, even after its president, Volodymyr Zelensky, said he would not sign any deal negotiated without Kyiv's involvement.
I will never accept any decisions between the United States and Russia about Ukraine.
European allies have also expressed alarm about being sidelined in these negotiations, despite President Donald Trump's desire for European countries to bear the burden of peacekeeping. One analyst says both European and Ukrainian officials need to be at the table.
It has to be crafted with the Ukrainians and with the Europeans, because if Russia was to, try to wage a war in the future years or just try to expand this sphere of influence, it will be dangerous for them.
White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt dismissed concerns that officials from Ukraine and other European countries were not present for Tuesday's talks.
Since the November 5th election, the president immediately started corresponding with our European allies and with President Zelensky directly. But the way that you solve a problem is you talk to both sides of that problem, and that's exactly what this administration is doing.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio said both Russian and U.S. officials will begin restoring staff at its embassies in Moscow and Washington. Rubio and National Security Advisor Mike Waltz seem to indicate that while the U.S. will consult with Europe and Ukraine, it would be Americans who will negotiate the deal with the Russians. In Washington, Cassie Simeon, Spectrum News.
More than half of the country is now bracing for historically low and life-threatening temperatures. The latest on winter weather coming up on Spectrum News.
said we'd never break the 3-second rule. Never do that. And never become a minivan mom.
Hey, Chris.
As parents, we say never a lot, but never happens. So when you say you'd never leave your child in a hot car, know it can happen. Before you leave the car, always stop, look, lock.
Great news, Spectrum Internet customers. Now you can try Spectrum Mobile risk-free for a full year at no cost to you. It's easier than ever to switch. Bring your own device and we'll pay off your phone balance up to $500 per line. Spectrum Mobile brings you a reliable nationwide 5G network you can count on wherever you go. Plus, upgrade your phone anytime, as many times as you want, for any reason when you get Unlimited Plus. Call or visit a store near you. Our specialists are ready to help you switch.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. 2 milligrams of fentanyl can be lethal. A lethal dose is in here. Who gets it, I won't know.
It's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable. The sad reality is fentanyl is being mixed into everything now.
More kitchen now.
You're not gonna get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff.
Mama!
Like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat.
News. It's your weather on the ones. As we went through Tuesday afternoon, we watched the thermometer struggle to get to 0 in the upper Midwest. Minneapolis barely made it. 3 degrees for an afternoon high. Unfortunately, folks in Bismarck, North Dakota, Great Falls, Montana, never got to 0 degrees. They stayed below 0 all day long. Intense cold air is expected for the next couple of days in the midsection of the country while we start to see the snow that folks saw in Kansas City. And this is Kansas City, Kansas on Monday night into Tuesday. That all shifts to the east as we head into Wednesday. Notice some big fat flakes out there. They saw anywhere from 2 to 3 to 4 inches of snow in portions of the Midwest. That threat will continue from Tuesday night into Wednesday for portions of the Ohio and Tennessee River Valley, and then over to the East Coast, namely North Carolina and Virginia, seeing the best chances of snow as we head into Wednesday. Notice snow and ice. The snow ice line in North Carolina is going to be watched very, very closely. It looks like mostly rain for South Carolina, Georgia, and obviously into Florida, but there could be some pretty impressive snow totals in places that don't get impressive snow totals. Right along the Virginia Tidewater into the Outer Banks of North Carolina, an interesting setup. Then once that storm moves out, there is a chance for a little bit more residual snow on Thursday. But notice the totals staying south of some of our bigger cities in the Midwest, namely Kansas City and St. Louis, but there will be some isolated 4 to 6 inch totals in portions of Tennessee, Kentucky, also Virginia, and over into North Carolina. Like I said, northern and eastern corner of North Carolina could get 6 to possibly 8 inches of snow. Just a crazy amount for them. Forecast highs on Wednesday staying below 0 in the upper Midwest or right above it in places like Minneapolis or Great Falls. How about 80s down in Florida? Go there to beat the cold, but we'll talk about the entire country warming up. That's in your extended forecast in just 10 minutes.
What you need to know. An investigation is underway after a Delta Airlines flight crashed and flipped upside down in Toronto. All 80 people on board survived. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. says he plans to investigate the childhood vaccine schedule and antidepressant drugs. Kennedy is looking into whether they play a role in chronic diseases. And correction officers in New York have formed unauthorized strikes outside of multiple state prisons over working conditions. New York's governor ordered the National Guard to the facilities if the strike does not end end by Wednesday. That's what you need to know. A legal battle is brewing over Elon Musk's role in the U.S. government. And joining us now for a look at all the political buzz is Alex Cohen. Alex, a lawsuit from Democratic states argues Musk has too much power for someone not elected or Senate confirmed. But the White House may have found a workaround when it comes to his title. What can you tell us?
Tomato, administrator, advisor, I think is the short way to summarize this. Basically, what we've seen from Musk and the Trump administration is that apparently Elon Musk is playing an advisory role. And since he is not officially the administrator of Doge, they say there is no conflict of interest. Elon Musk is apparently saying that this has now become Doge derangement syndrome instead of Trump derangement syndrome. The tricky part of it is, though, when pressed, okay, if Elon Musk isn't the head of Doge making all the decisions, who exactly is that person? We've yet to see an official answer. So this is a little bit of a slippery slope here when it comes to this new agency, which seems to be yielding a whole lot of power, Sharon.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Alex, there is a lot of attention around New York City Mayor Eric Adams following the Justice Department's demand to have his corruption charges dismissed. What is the latest in that court battle? And now it seems New York's Governor Kathy Hochul could get involved.
Yes, that's right. And the Democratic governor is in a very tricky position. You know, on the one hand, there are deep concerns about whether or not Mayor Adams is fit to serve, given some of the allegations. And now several of his top deputies have stepped down in the midst of that. Certainly, that is not a good look. On the other hand, even though the governor of New York does have the power to remove the mayor from office, this is a power that has never been used in New York State history. And Hochul is concerned that this might be overturning the will of voters. Today, she has been meeting with some influential Black leaders, trying to kind of feel the pulse of both the city and the state and try to chart the best course. She's truly in between a rock and a hard place at this moment.
She really is. I've heard her say she's not trying to make any rash decisions, so this will be very interesting. Alex Cohen with all your political buzz. Thanks.
Thank you.
An Arctic blast is descending on much of the U.S. this week. 27 states prepare to see near historic low temps. Feel-like temperatures will barely get above 0 degrees across the Kansas City metro. The region is still reeling from a batch of winter weather already this week. Meanwhile, more snow is expected in Kentucky. The state continues to deal with flooding from last weekend's fast-moving storms. Our meteorologist Nate Harrington joins us now. Nate, where are we expecting to see significant snowfall, and what can you tell us about these life-threatening temperatures?
Yeah, it's a double whammy. Unfortunately, the next 24 to 48 hours, snow ongoing now in portions of the Midwest. That moves into Kentucky and Tennessee, and then you go into Virginia and North Carolina through Wednesday. They're expecting anywhere from, say, 4 to 6 inches of snow in some places that don't often get it. We're talking about the Outer Banks of North Carolina. If you're familiar with that, that's right along the Atlantic coast. They could see upwards of 8 to 10 inches of snow here as we head through Wednesday. Notice some of the totals just south of Kansas City and St. Louis. So we're looking at a corridor from northern Arkansas through Tennessee, Kentucky, and then there you have some of the Blue Ridge Mountains, the Smokies, seeing about 6 to 8 inches of snow, and then a bullseye in the Virginia Tidewater region, the Delmarva Peninsula, and portions of the Outer Banks on Wednesday. Crazy the places that'll be getting the heaviest of the snowfall here the next 24 hours. And then not only the record cold temperatures in the morning, but how about high temperatures breaking records? The record low maximum temperatures in Kansas City, St. Louis breaking records or possibly getting close. Dallas, Oklahoma City, Little Rock, Arkansas, millions of people will see dangerously cold wind chills as well through Thursday. A lot of winter weather to get through, but some warming is coming next week, thankfully.
All right, that sounds good right there. All right, meteorologist Nate Harrington, thank you.
You got it.
Leaders in Los Angeles are facing criticism about how they're working to combat the homeless crisis. Just ahead on Spectrum News, one woman shares her experience trying to get back on her feet.
millions of school-aged children across the country, the state of their schools can have a lasting impact on their health and well-being.
The majority of school districts aren't doing comprehensive regular water quality testing.
As CO2 levels rise in a space, cognitive function takes a direct decline.
We visit 2 school districts working to create safe and healthy environments for their students.
Watch Exploring Your Health, Curing Our Classrooms. Available on the Spectrum News app.
When you know you can go anywhere because you have a connection that's built for everywhere. That's life unlimited. That's Spectrum.
I tell my son, I love you every single day. Now, my dad has never said that to me. Not because he doesn't love me, but because culturally it wasn't comfortable for him. Now that he's a grandfather, he says, I love you to my son every time he sees him. My advice to all the fathers out there, forget the cultural restrictions. They grow up way too fast for you to waste even a single precious moment.
Food isn't just fuel to live, it's fuel to grow. My family relied on public assistance to help provide meals for us. These meals fueled my involvement in theater and the arts as a child, which fostered my love for acting. The Feeding America network of food banks helps millions of people put food on the table. When people are fed, futures are nourished. Join the movement to end hunger, and together we can open endless possibilities for people to thrive. Visit feedingamerica.org/actnow.
It's your weather on the ones. Cold air will dominate the midsection of the country from Wednesday to Thursday. And what we have now, they're called extreme cold warnings or cold weather advisories. They're new to the National Weather Service, just started issuing them back in the fall. But we've already seen some areas of the country have to deal with cold and extreme cold warnings here this winter. I don't know if I've seen this much territory taken up by extreme cold warnings, including the upper Midwest all the way down into Texas. Not only the cold air, but the wind is going to be howling over the next couple of days. You have wind chill numbers in the 20s, 30s, 40s, and even 50s below zero in the upper Midwest near the Canadian border. That cold air will continue to sink down. And how about folks in Little Rock, Arkansas on Thursday morning with wind chills below zero to start the day? That's how far south this cold air is going to go. But I've got some better news. As the pattern starts to shift by Thursday and Friday, winter storm rolls off the coast. There will be a little bit of light snow possible for some of the coastal regions up in the north and east. But look at Friday. There ain't nothing to talk about. We've got an area of low pressure that'll weaken as it moves onshore out west. Saturday looks pretty quiet too. Some showers down in the Gulf Coast of Texas and Louisiana, and maybe another Pacific Northwest storm. But overall, the cold air takes over, obviously, for Wednesday, Thursday, and portions of Friday. But notice, this cold air retreats pretty quickly by the weekend. The extreme northeastern corner of the country will see the coldest of the air, but most of us are going to return to either above average or right at average temperatures as we end the weekend on Sunday. But it is going to be cold on Thursday. Temperatures not quite as cold, though. Numbers still well below average in the teens and single digits in the upper Midwest. And it'll be cold in the morning time on Friday, but highs in the 20s. Folks there in Minneapolis, Chicago, they'll take it. Temperatures remain 30, 35 degrees below average in the midsection of the country. But you notice those blues and purples get a little less dense, meaning temperatures not quite as far below average. Again, on Saturday, recovery. Bismarck will be 13 degrees above average instead of 30 degrees below average. And look at Sunday, we're either right at or just a little below average out east, but way above average out west.
The The 2025 Greater Los Angeles Homeless Count is beginning. It's an annual practice that started back in 2016 to better understand and combat the homeless crisis. As Spectrum's Anna Alba-Ryan reports, city and county leaders are facing growing pressure to show improvements in the numbers and scrutiny on how they're using taxpayer dollars on homeless programs.
A years-long battle with homelessness and addiction has led Noelia Nunez de Lima here to a transitional housing site near MacArthur Park that she calls her fresh start.
Well, at first, when I first got here, it was like, it didn't feel like a new beginning at all.
When we first met Noelia, she was living in a tent on Venice Boulevard underneath the 405 freeway. This encampment site was cleaned up in 2023 through LA Mayor Bass's Inside Safe program. We checked back in with Noelia last year at the Vista where she was placed, and she told us she was unhappy with how the program was going.
And I've pretty much been on edge and walking on eggshells.
Shortly after we spoke to her, she was no longer a part of Inside Safe. She says she lost the roof over her head and all of her belongings and any hope for housing. At the time, she says, this is what she was thinking.
I'm just gonna lay down by the creek and until I'm washed away, until I'm done. I don't have any other plan to keep this up anymore.
Noelia is one of more than 75,000 people across LA County who is grappling with homelessness. Ahead of the 2025 Greater LA Homeless Count, officials are under scrutiny over how much they're spending to tackle homelessness and whether that money is leading to results. For community advocates like Kevin Call, who runs mutual aid efforts on Skid Row, he's concerned this year's numbers won't show enough progress.
I hope that it's better, but I know it ain't better.
Kevin believes more accountability is needed for the $875 million budget that the LA Housing Services Authority, or LHSA, has each year to tackle homelessness. This after a recent audit from the LA City Controller's Office found that more than $218 million were spent on unused interim shelter beds from 2019 to 2023. LHSA's CEO, who responded to the audit in a statement, said in part, quote, "We came here to change things for the better, and I appreciate that the issues the controller identified largely align with system improvements we have been implementing since my arrival."
We got to put the money in the right hands so that the job can get done. If we give you the money, we need you to be accountable for the money and do what's necessary for the people.
In Noelia's case, she says her faith has helped her more than any government program.
I started going back to church, to my old church where I grew up. From the moment that I stepped back into that church, everything has been falling back into place.
A place that she hopes will lead to lasting change for herself and thousands of others who are still sleeping on LA's streets.
I'm Sharon Tazwell. Thanks for watching. Your Spectrum News in 90 is coming up right after the short break. Stay with us.
Friday nights, The Big Deal with Errol Lewis, where Spectrum News' local political journalists break down the most important issues shaping our nation.
Our journey towards improving mental health doesn't always present a clear path. Every Thursday on Your Mental Health, we listen to voices across our communities, discussing the challenges of everyday life and presenting accessible resources to guide us along the path to our well-being, providing hope and empowering choices that light the way to a healthier you.
Your Mental Health with Dr. Nicole Clark, Thursdays on Spectrum News Plus, available on all your favorite devices.
The future is here with Spectrum Mobile and the new Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra with Galaxy AI. Do more than ever before by handling multiple tasks with a single ask through Google Gemini. And start the day smarter with Now Brief, insights that keep you ahead. Power it all with the fastest wireless speeds from Spectrum Mobile. Order the new Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra with Galaxy AI from Spectrum and get $700 off with trade-in. And now Spectrum Internet customers can try Spectrum Mobile risk-free for a full year at no cost.
Whether it's our stories, the warmth of our laugh, or our family's secret sauce, we all bring something different to the table. So make some space. The power of connection is waiting right outside your comfort zone. Learn how you can help strengthen your community at belongingbeginswithus.org/team up.
Weather can be beautiful, inconvenient, and at times powerful. And it affects everything we do. At Spectrum News Plus, our weather experts update you with the information and the context you need so you can better plan your day. And we do it every 10 minutes. We're the calm in the storm. Weather on the Ones on Spectrum News Plus, exclusively on Spectrum. And get your weather anytime on the Spectrum News app. Spectrum News Plus, local stories, connecting communities. Streaming now on the